So episode 9 of Planet Earth is called Shallow Seas, and it's kind of about coastlines and the waters that surround the coasts. It's not about deep ocean, we get to that in the last episode, and this episode opens with humpback whales. So humpback whales are probably the most heavily filmed cetaceans. For a long time, they were kind of up there with chimpanzees for me as the ones I thought, okay, I've seen them before. But this sequence is really good, and it's got a bit of a narrative to it. It does pop up throughout the episode, and it is used as a narrative device. So we start in the tropical waters where we see this mother humpback and her calf, and the calf grows in these nice, safe tropical waters, but there isn't a lot for the mother to eat. So after 5 months, they'll have to leave these waters and head to the colder waters up north. And that's kind of the structure that the episode follows. Most of the early sequences in this episode take place in the tropical waters, and as the humpbacks move north, we then start to get further away from the tropics and into more temperate waters. And I think it's a really good narrative device that's used throughout the episode. And the humpback whales are great. I'm not going to dwell on them too much because they are featured throughout the episode, but they are really good. It's a really good seeing the journey, and I think it's really nice to see a humpback whale migration where the calf doesn't get killed by orcas. That's always a bonus. And I think we actually do get to focus on the actual journey. Usually these journeys are plagued by orca hunts. So it is nice to see the journey in itself because it is quite a dangerous one. And after that we briefly talk about the Great Barrier Reef. However, we don't bother going there. You know, why would you go to the Great Barrier Reef? Why would you waste time there when you could go to Indonesia? So Indonesia actually has a lot more wildlife. It's a lot more abundant. There's a lot more coral species. There's seahorses. There's quite a few things there. The main thing I take away from the Indonesia sequence is the sea crates. So we see quite large numbers of sea crates hunting for fish, and among the crevices and cracks in the corals. And we see that they partner with Trevally, and the two kind of have this little alliance where the sea crates can get into the little tough cracks, and anything that's spooked and manages to escape will get eaten by the Trevally. So we see quite a few sequences in these kind of programs with a predator going around the reef and managing to catch all the fish that's hidden in the little crevices. But usually it's sharks, so it's nice to see a different kind of predator because sea crates are pretty unique. I mean, I don't think when people think of snakes, they think of marine ones. And it's quite rare that this behaviour happens. So again, it's not something that you see very often. It's not something we've seen since either, so it's quite good. And as we move away from the reefs, we look at defensive strategies used by various animals on the open sands, like octopus and various types of fish. It's okay, it's fine, it's probably one of the weaker parts of the episode. But then we talk about seagrass. So seagrass, again, is another habitat that's very important. It's a very good carbon sink. But we see sea turtles cropping them, and we see dugongs, so quite a large herds, I guess, of dugongs cropping the seagrass. Again, dugongs, you don't see them very often, and I don't think there's much that they do apart from eat seagrass. So I think if we're talking about seagrass and animals eat them, why not talk about dugongs? And I didn't know that they gathered in such large numbers as well. They do kind of feel like great herds, like, the bison and the prairies. And then we look at dolphins. So we can't have an episode about seas and not talk about dolphins. They've got to pop up at some point. And we see bottlenose dolphins, and we see that they're hunting fish. So we see that they basically chase this fish into the shallow water, and will then just dive onto the sand to catch them. It's kind of similar to the way orcas beach themselves hunting sea lions, only it's a lot more playful and fun and not, harrowing. So it's really cool seeing it again. Bottlenose dolphins, they're always doing ingenious stuff to catch fish. I've seen all the other kind of big dolphin, the way dolphins catch fish, whether they're beaching themselves on their sides or making the spirals in the sort of Florida Keys. And I think this is one I've not seen replicated since, so it's kind of just stand on its own. But it's a really good sequence. Again, dolphins are, everyone likes dolphins. They're pretty charismatic, famously. So it's nice to see them in this episode, and I like what they're doing here, so it's really good. And then we look at cormorants. We talk about these vast cormorant colonies in the Arabian Peninsula, and not where you'd expect to go in the Shallow Seas episode. And we talk about how the sand is blown in from the peninsula into the surrounding Gulf and provides a lot of nutrients. So again, it's always good to talk about how the land impacts the sea. And as we move into temperate waters, we talk about the food chain. So we see all these algae blooms and how they are really good for plankton. We have loads of things. There's comb jellies, there's krill in big numbers, which attracts fish, which attracts marine mammals. We see sea lions and dolphins both catching them. We see a bait ball sequence. There is another one in the Ocean Deep episode, which I believe was bigger, if memory serves. So I might save talking about bait balls till then. And then we see the coast of California, where we see kelp forests. So kelp forests are pretty famous. And we see how urchins strip the kelp forests. We don't talk about how it's a massive environmental disaster, which of course it is. We just kind of talk about how it's this weird thing that happens. And we see that when these kelp forests are stripped, which are great for starfish, there's loads of different types of starfish there. There's brittle stars. We see these massive sunflower starfish, which are the main predators. They eat all the brittle stars, which is quite good to see that the brittle stars actually get out of the way when it's sped up. It almost is quite funny. You can almost see Laurel and Hardy music playing over it. And then we move to South Africa, where we see the main event, which is squid. So the squid sequence is alright. We basically see them breeding and how they get eaten by stingrays and ragged-toothed sharks, which are also cool. So yeah, that's alright. However, it is very much the appetizer for the main course, which is, of course, the Cape fur seals being hunted by great white sharks. This sequence is pretty iconic. I mean, I think I talked about cordyceps probably being the most memorable sequence from the series in the last review. I think this is either as iconic, if not slightly more maybe. The shots alone have stood the test of time. So basically, we saw this in the first episode, but I didn't really go into it too much because it features here as well. We basically see there's all these Cape fur seals in the breeding season, and they've got to get to the open water to get their fish. And to get to the open water where they can catch fish, they have to cross this quite narrow strip of water, which, while it doesn't say in the episode, is actually called Shark Alley because it's notorious for being abundant with great white sharks. All the great white sharks migrate to flock to this one little strip of water where they catch the seals, and the seals have to run the gauntlet, literally swimming for their lives, lest they be attacked by the great white sharks. The great white sharks will patrol below the seals and dive up with this massive burst of speed to then leave the water literally with the seals in their mouths before dropping back down. It's a great shot. It's great. The whole thing takes 1 second, but it's all slow motion. Slow-mo, to be honest, has probably been done to death to an extent in these kind of programs. But back in 2006, I feel like we hadn't really gotten to that point yet. This is a really good job of just showing you how powerful these predators are. I mean, we all know great white sharks are the scariest things in the sea. We've all seen Jaws, or at least are familiar with the tail. And we hear about shark attacks all the time, but I think seeing it here, they really are impressive animals. I mean, it does hit home that they are just so impressive. I don't think we've seen too many great white shark sequences since this, to be honest. There's one in Africa, and they pop up every now and again in other programs, but I don't think we see them too often in these kind of big budget nature programs. Obviously, there's Shark Week in America, which basically exclusively deals in it, I assume. And I like the music is very, like, not even foreboding, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. There's always a bit of a lull, and then all of a sudden it's like a bang as the shark leaves the water with the steel in its mouth. There's not much more to say about it other than it's a great sequence, and it's absolutely the highlight of the episode and one of the highlights of the series. And then we move further south to king penguins, and we see them getting attacked by fur seals. After just watching fur seals being attacked by great white sharks, I find I can't take them quite as seriously as predators. It's fun to watch. I mean, they are both clumsy on land, but you do kind of feel like it is a bit of a struggle. I feel like if this series came out nowadays, this would be definitely a funny sequence. It isn't really. It's definitely, you definitely see how it is a fight to the death. Like the seals definitely have the upper hand, but the penguins can easily do some damage. They can poke their eyes out. I mean, their beaks are pretty sharp. So I think while both parties are extremely clumsy on land, and the penguins generally get away, I think we see a couple that get caught. You do get a sense that there is a threat, which is, good. And then we end the episode up in Alaska, I believe it is, where we see the algal bloom, they've got all the planktons there, all the fishes there, and the humpback whales there. This is where we end the episode with the humpback whales, having watched them journey from the tropical waters of presumably Hawaii to the rich waters of Alaska, where they're able to finally feed, and the mother gets her food, and it's like, and they part ways. We don't often talk about whale calves separating from their mothers, probably because they always get killed by orcas in these programs, to be honest. But it's kind of nice to see that. It's very bittersweet. You kind of feel like they've been through a journey because you followed them throughout the episode. So it's kind of nice. Again, I think it's a nice way to end the episode. Then we have the diaries, which obviously is about the people filming the great white sharks. I mean, what else were they going to film for this episode? And we see Simon King. I mean, where the hell's he been all this time? I mean, you used to see Simon King all the time on Springwatch or Big Cat Diary, stuff like that. Where's he been, We do see how it's, a proper a patient journey almost. It's not like last week where it was really funny. This is very much the opposite. We do see them spending quite a lot of time trying to catch the sharks on camera. And it is really difficult because, I mean, you can't really predict where they're going to be. You can't see them. The water's dark, and of course they're dark, and it's generally dark because it's, first thing in the morning. And you did get a sense that as the shoot progressed, they really managed to hone their craft of actually being able to tell where the sharks were going to be. And there's this really dark bit where a seal gets fatally injured and it's hugging the boat, basically, as the sharks are going after it. We don't actually see it, so I imagine that it was probably quite gruesome, or at least too gruesome to show on TV, which this would have aired at 9 p.m. So, after the watershed, so probably quite dark. So yeah, this episode, pretty good, really good stuff. So the highlights, obviously the great white sharks and the seals. The humpback whales are also great. I like the king penguins, all the stuff with the dugongs. Again, there's a lot to like in this episode. There's a few more lulls in it than the last one, I would say, but that happens. So yeah, what did you think of this episode? What are your highlights? I mean, I imagine it was also the great white sharks, but you never know. there might be other stuff you really liked. So yeah, let me know. And yeah, I will be doing the seasonal forests episode next, which is the penultimate episode of Planet Earth. Yeah, look forward to that. As ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, then that's fair enough. And yeah, I will see you next week, and goodbye.